My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
I'm Tara Sims, and today's leadership quote comes from Maya Angelou. You can only become truly accomplished at something you love. Don't make money your goal. Instead, pursue the things you love doing and then do them so well that people can't take their eyes off you.
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Thank you for listening to the Leader Assistant podcast. And here's your host, my dada.
Hey friends, welcome to episode 114 of the Leader Assistant podcast. You can check out the show notes at leaderassistant.com/114. Before we jump into today's interview with Tara Sims from Comcast, I wanted to invite you to join us in the Leader Assistant Premium membership. We have over 200 members now. We're very excited to have a great rest of the year and really spend a ton of time diving deep into professional development, training, coaching, and community. So you can join us at leaderassistant.com/membership. That's leaderassistant.com/membership. Hope you can join us and enjoy this episode with Tara Sims. Hey friends, thanks for tuning in to the Leader Assistant podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Burrows, and today I'm very excited to be speaking with Tara Sims. She is in the Administrative Services Department of Comcast, and we're really excited to chat with you today, Tara. Tara, could you first start with where you're at and maybe just a little bit of a backstory of how you got into the whole admin career?
Hi, Jeremy. Thanks again for having me. I am actually in Atlanta, Georgia. And I began my career when I graduated from college, initially as a college recruiter. So the first 10, 11 years of my career, I started as a college recruiter and then made the decision to do something that was kind of off the beaten path a little bit. I wanted to get my cosmetology license, which was something that I'd always wanted to do. And in order to do that, I needed to look for an opportunity that would give me some flexibility to go to school in the evening. And working as a college recruiter, I was traveling. I would sometimes work on the weekends, and I really didn't have the flexibility to put school in my schedule at the time. And so I thought, what could I do that would allow me to be able to get off work 4:30, 5 o'clock, and then go to school to pursue my cosmetology license. And I applied for a position at a bank supporting an executive leader on the retail side of the bank. So she was over the branches. And what I discovered, fortunately enough, school was across the street. So it kind of worked out in such a great way that I was able to find a position that would allow me schedule-wise to go to school, but then also it was right across the street, so it was really convenient. And so I started working for her as an assistant and realized very quickly that it was something that I enjoyed and that I did very well.
What did you enjoy about it?
So I think for me, I am naturally gifted in the areas of being able to create order in chaos. And I'm someone who thinks in a linear way, so I can see a situation that may be a little bit confusing for people and put some structure to it and then give you an output that makes sense. I also liked being able to help someone she was definitely someone who was more of a visionary as opposed to someone who could really manage the details. And because I'm really good with the details, I thought to myself, this feels like the right place from a profession standpoint for me to be. I just think I'm really good at it. I'm organized, I'm structured. I can see a a situation that may need some adjusting and put the right adjustments to help things flow better and more efficiently. And it just sort of comes naturally to me. And it felt right.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's, I kind of felt that same thing. I was like, oh, I'm good at these details. People around me aren't very good at this stuff.
Yes.
And, it just feels like, man, there's something here. Like there's something to say. Yes, there's challenges, and yes, you want to grow and whatever, but there's something to say for a task or a role that just feels like it comes naturally to you.
Well, and you know what? I always felt a sense of accomplishment. Every day I would walk away feeling like I was able to impact her day, her schedule. And that felt good to me. So I think, in being in that role, never had I thought I would stay in the profession, but just in taking the role and trying to pursue something else, it just felt like the right fit for me.
Yeah. Do you feel like you talked about they were very visionary? Do you sometimes feel like you work for the idea people and then you're the execution person?
Over the years, I've had a mixture of both.
Yeah.
I definitely have had or supported executives that I feel like are like really true visionaries. They are the idea generators. They are and could not even figure out how to put the pieces of the puzzle together if you pay the millions of dollars to do so. So I've definitely had those people that are just all over the place. They're generating all of these ideas and they have, they have strategic minds, but wouldn't even know the first thing about how to execute and get it actually done. So definitely have had that. And then I've also had executives who have a nice balance, which is always nice to have. Ones that are obviously visionary, but also take the time to stop and think about the details and how you get from point A to point B. And truthfully, I've enjoyed working for both, right? I think once you learn your executive and the person that you're supporting, you then know how to pivot and behave and adjust in situations that might come up. So, for example, I had an executive who would always wait last minute to get things done before a major meeting. And I mean, whether it be getting the presentation together, making decisions around whether we were going to get swag or collateral for these meetings and events. And so I just learned to adjust to that. As we began to schedule events and meetings, I always made sure that I cleared my evening schedule. I knew that I would be at work late for several nights before the meeting. I would tee up vendors to say, hey, there's some things coming down the pike, be prepared for this. And so, yeah, I've enjoyed having a mixture of both.
Do you feel like over the years that you've become more of an idea person?
That's an interesting question. I think become more of an idea person, but I don't know that it's necessarily focused toward the work that I do in the support of my executives. And so what I mean by that is over the last couple of years, and probably even more intensely last year, partly because there was more time built into my life as a result of COVID. I was so productive as it relates to generating ideas to invest in the administrative community in my organization. We don't have an internal network, or we didn't, for the assistants that sit within the division that I sit. And it gave me some time to really start figuring out a way to create a space to engage and collaborate, exchange ideas, promote professional development for this group in a way that hadn't been done either by the company or by any individual within our division. And so in that respect, I think I've become more of an idea person. I think I probably always have been sort of an idea person, but I think it's I'm always so focused on driving someone else's vision or executing on someone else's vision or completing tasks related to someone else's projects. And so I think just in the last year, I've been able to really focus on things that have originated with me, in particular with the administrative community within the division I work, which has been quite fulfilling, actually.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what are some, we'll get into kind of how you lead your team of admins, but what's some of the things that you've done as far as the professional development and the community as a whole?
So I started actually January of 2020, before we all went home. I hosted the first Administrative Professional Summit for the assistants that actually sit in the office in which I sit, and built an agenda, had guest speakers, was able to do some things, have our HR group come in, and we did insights training. I don't know if you're familiar with insights, but it's sort of the behavioral training, so you can learn a little bit more about, you know, the way you communicate and the different styles of communicators and how to interact with them. We had a great guest speaker who actually supports a pretty high profile executive to come in and talk to this group about her career path and her career journey, how she got into the place that she's currently sitting. And then when COVID happened, we all went home in March, and around June, I decided to create a administrative professionals Teams channel. So through Microsoft Teams, created a channel, partnered with someone in communications, and began to create content for that space, posting every Monday in our general channel. And then I created an ideas exchange and collaboration space that anyone could post in. I was also posting once a month there, and then in a social space. And this time including not just the folks in my office, but also including all of the assistants that sit within our division, which is about 59 or so assistants that represent about 17 states or so. And started creating content in that space, professional development, talking about training opportunities, highlighting things that were happening within our specific organization. And it really gave a space for this community that's really not getting much attention as it relates to training and professional development. It gave us an opportunity to really get to know each other and to exchange in that space. And so as a result of doing that, this past February 2021, we did an administrative professional summit to include virtually, obviously, but to include all of the assistants in the division, which was an opportunity for me to be able to provide a guest speaker for this group, for them to get some professional development as an entire team. Since that time, I've done meet and greet sessions with this group to really get to know, because it's such a varied and vast group of administrative professionals as it relates to the work that we do. So we have some that are working in call centers, supporting director level executives. We have some that are working in tech spaces. We have some that are in division offices and region offices. So such a varied group of individuals that we've been doing these meet and greet sessions, which I'm currently doing those now, which have been really nice because we've been able to get to know each other, identify what things are hot topics for each other in our individual workspaces, talk about things that would be of importance and of value for them to learn as they grow as administrative professionals. And, you know, for me, it's just been so fulfilling because I'm so passionate about the role that I'm in and the work that we do. And I thought one of the things I said on the last meet and greet last week, I said, you know, this type of engagement wasn't happening. And I thought if I wasn't going to create it as the person who is essentially the lead administrative professional as I support the president, if I wasn't going to create it, I didn't know who would. So why not have it be me to create it?
Yeah. Awesome. So what's one thing that you discovered about your team throughout this whole process?
I've discovered, well, specifically, because I actually have, I had 4 originally reporting directly to me. I now have 3 because we didn't backfill one after when COVID started. So we just distributed the work. But what I've learned about my team specifically, has been that they are incredibly resilient and that they have been able to pivot in this new environment that we're all working in. One of the things that we did when we first went home is I sat down with my team and I said to them, I said, now you're not doing expense reports. You're not booking travel. You're not running around the office, getting visitors and shuffling interview candidates from room to room. You're not making sure catering has arrived. You're not ordering meals. What are you doing? Like, where are you adding value at this point? And so one of the very first things that we did was sit down and we basically did a brain dump. We sat down and talked about skills that they have that they hadn't been using when we were in the office and how to take those skills and apply them in a virtual environment, how to connect with their executives in a more intense way, how to manage their calendars in a more intentional and intense way, how to be able to get into those meetings that they otherwise would not have been in and be able to take notes, look for opportunities to contribute to the conversation, look for opportunities to assist their executives by, just being in the room. You're able to learn more. You're able to understand a little bit more about the business and what your particular executives actually do for the business and how they move the business forward. We weren't in those rooms prior to COVID. And so in a lot of instances, right? And so what I've learned about my team, and I'm incredibly proud, especially at this past week, I've been doing performance feedback gathering from our VPs, which I do that quarterly to have a conversation to see how things are going. And I'm so proud of how they've been able to pivot, how they've really become more business partners to their executives, how their executives are now seeing them a little bit differently, seeing them as real value adds to the group. And so for me, that's been great to actually see it. And the truth of the matter is this: the role of the administrative professional has been evolving for some time. COVID has escalated that. And I am so grateful that the folks that I get to work with every day have been able to adapt and pivot in this new environment.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love to hear just the stories of teams like yours being flexible and adapting and innovating in the crazy change and chaos. So thanks for sharing a little bit about that. I'm curious to hear, we had talked a few weeks ago and you had shared a little bit about how you lead your team, your professional admin team. And there was one thing that you mentioned about basically like a shared services or ticketing kind of example. And you just mentioned, we also talked about encouraging the executives to provide feedback, which you just said you just gathered that. Before we get into the shared ticketing services example, what do you do with, or what have you found has been helpful when you're trying to, let's say you started the community with the admins and you started these meet and greets and you started getting, How do you encourage those that aren't really engaging in that, on your team or on the broader team? People are just tired of Zoom calls, or they're just tired of meet and greets, or they just want to clock in, clock out. They don't want too much more. How do you engage them? How do you really challenge and gently encourage and push them into that engagement?
So that's a good question. And I have to be honest with you. Here's the approach that I've taken. And people have asked me about this before, particularly one of my counterparts who is in my same role within another division. She was starting something similar and wanted to know how I am able to get folks to engage. And here's the way I have to think about it. I built a space, right? I built a space. All of these administrative professionals don't directly report to me. The space that I'm building is not something that is a requirement as it relates to their work and their job and their role. It is not required engagement. And so my thinking in creating this space was that I'm going to put this out here. And I'm going to put it out here because they are things that are of value, I think, to me as an administrative professional. I spent time sort of engaging externally with administrative professionals and what things were happening in the administrative profession space and hot topics and doing research. And so I thought, I am just going to create a schedule, a content schedule, and I am going to just start producing this content that I think is of value to this group of individuals. And I'm just going to pray that something resonates. And truthfully, interestingly enough, over time, there were people who weren't engaging. And, at first I thought, okay, is this going terribly wrong? I'm not sure what's happening here. But what I realized is when there was something in the channel that resonated with an individual that maybe had been otherwise quiet, they would engage. They would, even if it was just a thumbs up, to say, hey, I saw that. I like that. This is good. And so partly, I think the way I was thinking about that was because I didn't want to feel like what I was creating was going to be an epic failure. But I also realized that this had never been done before. And I didn't want people to feel like, again, like they were obligated to engage, but I wanted to create the space. And for those who wanted to, they have. And so just to give you like a number, with our meet and greet sessions, completely explained to everyone, those were optional. It was going to be an opportunity for us to get to know each other, to learn a little bit about each other. And of 59 of the assistants, over 35 of them are participating in meet and greet sessions. So, I'm pleased with that number.
Yeah.
The other thing I've done is recognize that I am not the expert or the only voice that needs to be in the room. And so I have brought along some of our regional senior vice president's assistants, and they have agreed to take over each quarter a portion of the Teams channel. We're calling it the Region Takeovers. And so to have other voices in the space, because I'm very clear that at the level at which I support, there are folks doing things that either I've never done or I'm no longer doing in the seat that I sit in as an administrative professional. And so I wanted to make sure that other voices were going to be represented in the space. And we're in the beginning stages of this, right? So we just started doing this the middle of last year. And interestingly enough, it's organically, in my opinion, growing the right way. And I'm engaging people the right way. And it's been slow and steady. And engagement is, I think, increasing. And I'm very pleased with more than half of the group wanting to actually get on a Teams meeting and talk about themselves and their experiences and what they're doing in their individual workspaces. So that's really how I've approached it. I also didn't want to put a lot of pressure on myself because nobody asked me to do this. This was this was something I decided to do because I thought it was important.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like consistency has been a big thing for you. And I found that throughout the COVID pandemic and really in the heat of it last year, we started doing weekly Zoom chats, just opening them up to administrative assistants and executive assistants all over the world every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Central. And we just said, hey, we're going to hop on for 30 minutes and we're going to talk about certain topics. We're going to split up into breakout rooms, do some icebreaker questions. But essentially, we're going to just say, listen, you're not alone and we're all going through this together. There are other assistants in the world who feel your pain and can share in your successes. And we just, I think we've done it for we might have skipped 1 week, but we've done it for 60 weeks in a row or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And it's just sometimes I'm like, you know what, it's time to log on and do this. Do I really want to do this today? But then I do it and I'm glad I did because I see these faces that I've seen almost every week. And it just helps build the community up as far as we're not alone and we're in this together. So yeah, props to you for taking a risk and throwing it out there. And you never know what's going to stick, but it sounds like it's helping.
The philosophy was, and I've said this in the last week, I said this to 2 different people. I decided I was just going to throw something up against the wall and see what stuck. Mm-hmm. That was my philosophy last year. I had no clue what I was about to do. I had no clue. I just did it. I just started doing it. And I went to my communications partner and I was like, just roll with me. I just need your creative input. I'll create the content. You help with the creative because the Teams channel is quite creative and it looks very nice, if I might say so myself. But I needed a professional to handle the creative pieces of it. And it's just grown and I'm really proud of it. And I have shared it with others in other divisions and they are doing things similar as a result of it. And I'm really pleased with the fact that it worked and it's working.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, let's jump and talk about the shared services ticketing example that you told me. So basically you have a team of admins and you have a lot of employees. Comcast is obviously a big company. A lot of people ask, in fact, in our membership coaching session last month, I think it was, we talked about the attributes of a high performing team, EA team, because a lot of people keep asking us about okay, what do you recommend if you're leading a team or if you're part of a team and you're not the lead so I really liked your example and I'm going to segue slash tie this into AI and automation and how we are future proofing our roles. And I really liked this example because it felt like a way where your team could take on more for the company and be more valuable to the company and increase the ROI of your team, but in a structured way versus just everybody taking on too much and working too much and saying yes to everything and burning out.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about that system and a little bit what you told me the other day.
Okay, so the division in which I sit has grown so much over the last few years. When I started in 2012, we probably had 300 or 400 people in our office. And today, we probably, nobody's in our office at the moment, but today we have probably 800 or so individuals attached to the building each day we probably had somewhere between 6 and 650 walking through the doors every day, right? And over the years, as we've gotten larger, I've watched executives doing all kinds of things that were truly administrative in nature. And thinking to myself, now, is this really the best use of their time? And so the ticketing system, so I have a team of administrative professionals who provide direct administrative support to our VP level executives, right? So they manage their calendars, they're managing their meetings. Those are those meetings that they're actually in the room for now, and capturing notes and following up on deliverables from their teams. But then they also operate in this shared services capacity. Clearly, this has slowed down a bit since nobody's in our office. But when in the office, the way the shared services model worked is we created a ticketing system. The ticketing system that we use is Asana. I think I may have mentioned that. And if you are an individual who is below the VP level that may have the need for an administrative hand to support a project, maybe to enter data for you, maybe you're having a large meeting and you just need an additional set of hands to put things together for the meeting, organize handouts for the meeting. You just need another set of hands and helping you from an administrative standpoint. You can put in a ticket for that. And when someone puts in the ticket, it's a very simple ticket, just asking a few details around what type of project it is, the urgency around the project, how quickly it needs to be done, the date of the completion for the project. So just some simple details, very quick to complete. And the ticket then comes to me. I will then take a look at the ticket and decide who on the team should be the best person to respond to the ticket. And I do that based on a couple of things. So it'll depend on capacity and workload for my team. Sometimes it's based on interest. For example, I have someone on my team that's very creative. And so if it's something that's, we need help building a newsletter, or it would be her that I would give it to. It could be, editing documents. If it's something like an edit of a document, I have someone on my team that, has done, she used to do contracts. And so capacity, interest, those are the things I sort of take into consideration when I decide who's going to handle the ticket. And then it's issued to one of my direct reports. They will then reach out to the client and get additional details if additional details are needed in order to execute. Then they execute on that. Once it's complete, I close out the ticket, and then we're done.
So these assistants are doing tasks and projects from VPs that they don't report to.
Right. They report to me on paper directly. And they are supporting VPs. And interestingly enough, it's an interesting dynamic because I then am sort of in the middle of that a little bit. And it's gone well because part of my responsibility when we created this structure was to explain to, I call it like a campaign. I almost went on a campaign of executive education where I wanted to make sure, because some of these VPs had never had a dedicated administrative resource. I wanted to make sure that, number one, they were clear around the work that this team would be doing. I also wanted to make it very clear to them that while I would be coaching and training and developing this team on best practices, that it would be very important for them to provide direct feedback to the team, because while I can coach on and train and develop on best practices and ways to do things, I cannot speak to VPX's nuanced kind of the way he or she likes things done, or what works for him or her, or what doesn't work for him or her. So there's been a bit of a campaign when we started this structure. It's been in place for a little while now, where I would just talk to these VPs, right? And talk to them about, okay, you have to be able to coach in the moment. If there's something that works for you, is not working for you, or you would like, one of my folks to do that they're not doing. And so it's been an interesting, but it's been fairly smooth. I think once executives are clear on what they can go and ask for and what the boundaries are, and it's actually worked out pretty well for the group, I think.
That's awesome. Well, what would be, okay, if someone's listening and they want to lead a team like you're leading someday, what's one thing that they can do now to prepare themselves to lead a team of assistants?
I think experience in the profession helps. I think also to having an understanding of, so one of the things that I think worked for me or was really great for me is, in my time that I've been there, I've worked for many of the departments, supporting other executives in those departments and having a real understanding of what the needs may have been in each of those departments from an administrative standpoint. I would also say that one of the best ways to get to the next place in your career in terms of leading a team is to be an example to follow, right? And build a brand and a reputation that you are someone who is really effective in the work that you do, which in my opinion starts with the person you support or with the executives that you support, making sure that you're operating in your current role with excellence. Because before you can get in a place where you're coaching and training and advising and mentoring others, you want to be in a place where you're operating with excellence in your current role. I would also say that you've kind of got to know what the administrative needs are for the business. In order to be able to lead a team and lead them to a place where they're effectively providing support for the business or for that group of employees. And build yourself a personal board of directors. I've said this before. I say this to a lot of people, like have a group of trusted individuals that will help you learn how to become a great leader, pay attention to great leaders and what they focus on and what they spend their energy and time on, and pay attention to the things that they don't focus on as well. Have a peer that can be a sounding board for you. Like if you have ideas, I think part of growing into leadership is having people around you that are leaders, that give you honest feedback, who can help you get to a place where you can be a strong leader. So there's a lot. I mean, I've been at this for a long time, and I started managing my first person that I managed in this role or in the administrative world was just in 2017. So it took a while. I didn't come out the gate like, oh, I'm leading a team here. And so I think there's a lot that goes on to get to this space and place. You want to try to be seen as a resource. You want to make sure that people trust you and that they see you as someone who really understands the work that we do as assistants, and that we're able to then effectively be able to communicate that to folks who would potentially be reporting to us. That was a lot.
No, that's great. Yeah, I think that leading by example, and I really love what you said about pay attention to what the good leaders do around you and what they don't do, what they don't spend their time on.
Listen, one of the things that I've learned from my current boss is, you know, he doesn't get worked up over things that I would think would drive somebody crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like he just doesn't sweat certain things about personnel issues and, those kinds of things that can derail people. And I've learned so much because I'm a fairly excitable person. Like there are things that because and you may be able to relate to this as an assistant, we like things a certain kind of way. We're structured. We like order. And when things deviate out of that space, it can make me a little crazy. And so I've learned so much to be able to say, you know what? I'm not going to spend a bit of energy trying to correct whatever that was, or if I think if it needs correcting in my mind. And so I think what you learn when you begin to lead people is there's a level of learning how to take a beat when things happen and just pause for a minute and letting certain things roll off of your back.
Love it. Well said. Well said. Let's kind of wrap it up on the topic of confidence. So kind of tying into what you just talked about with trying to stay steady in the storm and in the chaos, staying steady. That's another one of the biggest topics. Like how do I get more confident? How are these leaders around me? How are these leader assistants and these executives around me? How are they able to be confident when they don't really know what they're doing, or when oftentimes they are just kind of thrown into situations? So what's kind of your number one tip for growing that deep-rooted confidence?
I think I hear this all the time from assistants, and I see it all the time with assistants. And in fact, yesterday I had an assistant call me and just wanted to talk to me because she really is struggling with her confidence. And I think it's beginning to affect her work performance because there's another assistant in the office who is the exact opposite, who is overly confident, who's shining all over the place. And I think it's causing this individual to shrink even more. And so she called me and she's like, I want to talk about confidence because I am struggling. And so what I said to her, and I say this to others, is confidence is really built on accomplishment. I think it's about setting small goals, doing the preparation that you need, learning all the things that you need to achieve those goals, and then achieving them over time, one by one, over and over again. Because I feel like I tell my team all the time is, listen, you know what you know. Don't let someone who carries a VP title or an SVP title tell you something that there's a better way to get something done. You know what you know. It's like, and I think it's important for us to operate in a positive mindset and understanding that the things that we tell ourselves, this individual called me yesterday and I'm having a confidence issue. Well, nope, we're going to change that statement. You are not having a confidence issue, because we tell ourselves these things. So for me, it's about positive self-talk. It's about consistently doing well in an area, because that helps you to be confident that you know what you're doing and you know what you're talking about. Our work doesn't change that much. It really doesn't. And so if you focus on becoming an expert in an area or really learning all that you can, whether it be working with other assistants to get better, whether it be taking courses in a particular thing. Maybe it's a software that you're trying to learn or you're trying to get better at. It's like, focus your energy in that space and continue to work on it and then go for it. Like, you know what you know. And so I see it all the time. I think sometimes we assistants are tentative to make decisions. Yes, there are going to be times when you make a decision, it will be the wrong one. But guess what? The world will continue to move. And if you have the right relationship with your executive and they trust you, they know that you made a mistake. But you have to be able to operate in a space that shows that you know what you're doing as it relates to your role. And so that's what I would tell. Take it in small bites. If there's a thing that you want to master, learn all the things you need to know to master that thing, and then start practicing it and keep doing it. And again, and again. And yes, you're going to make mistakes, but you're supposed to learn from those mistakes. And that's how you build confidence.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I watched this Netflix documentary with my boys yesterday called Speed Cubers, and it was about the Rubik's Cube, where they like solve the Rubik's Cube in like 6 seconds. And it was these two kids. They started off real young. They're not kids now, but started real young doing it. And one person asked him, he's like, how do you do this? How do you get so good? And he just says, practice.
What a concept.
And it's like, okay, well, touche, kid, touche.
I mean, I think we make these, I think there's so much about, I meet so many assistants who have this mindset that because someone carries a title, that they are the expert and authority on all things. If they were the expert and authority on all things, there would be no assistants. You know, we do things that others can't do, for sure. And so it's about really shifting your mind around thinking, yes, SVPX is the expert in this particular thing, but I am the expert in managing this calendar, dealing with the collisions on this calendar, understanding what things should go where on the calendar, how to resolve. I am the expert in that area. He or she is not. And so, you know, I think that we should really take the time to understand ourselves, the value that we add, and recognize that everybody can't do our job.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, you know, if your executive is an expert at something that you don't know that much about, your job is to allow them the space and the time and the energy to focus on that expertise so that the company is getting the highest ROI from
Absolutely.
that executive. So.
Absolutely. There's no question. No question about it.
Awesome, Tara. Well, I know I kept you a little longer than I promised, but
okay.
you're dropping some truth bombs and I couldn't stop you.
I love a truth bomb.
How can we get in touch with you? Is there any way we can support you or reach out and say hi? I know a lot of the listeners probably are resonating with what you're saying and would love to connect if you're open to it. So how can we connect with you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, and it's Tara Sims with 1M, SIMS. I'm in the process of revamping my LinkedIn page, so stay tuned for that, but it's definitely up and running. I look forward to folks reaching out. I've had such a great year as it relates to networking and engaging with folks in our profession outside of the network that I work in. And it's been tremendously rewarding. And I feel like we're such a great group of individuals in this profession, and we have such great ideas and so much that we can share and take back to our individual organizations that we work for. And so I am open and welcome anyone who wants to connect to reach out to me.
Awesome. Well, I'll share the link to your LinkedIn in the show notes so people can get to that quickly. But yeah, thanks again. Really appreciate it. Look forward to staying in touch.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com